I came home early on a Thursday with a bow on a box and a dumb dad joke ready, thinking I'd sneak into the kitchen and make my 7-year-old smile. I turned the corner into the backyard and froze because my little girl Maddie, paralyzed from the waist down, was on the brick with water running off her hair like she'd been dunked in a sink. My wife Vanessa had a bottle tilted over her head, and when Maddie choked, "Please, Mommy, I can't breathe," I heard a voice tear out of me that didn't sound like mine. "Stop." The bottle hit the ground. The house went quiet in that heavy way rich houses do when the mask slips, and the gift box slid from my hand. The doll rolled out, a fine crack splitting across her plastic cheek, like the truth finally showing its line. People told me I was lucky. You know, the big job at Cole and Hartman Logistics, the fundraisers, the tailored suits. Money is a loud bandage when you're grieving, and when Maddie's mom died fast and cruel, I worked like it was therapy. Vanessa swept in a year later with perfect posture and perfect answers, told me she could keep our home peaceful, and I wanted that so bad I mistook quiet for safety, yeah. That happened. Inside that afternoon, she was hosting Laughing by the Marble Island, telling her friends I was away on business, while she took great care of my daughter. And outside the glass, my kid sat with her old teddy bear, last gift from her mom, listening to the kind of laughter that makes you feel like a ghost, you know what I mean. Beatrice, our housekeeper, passed by and whispered at Maddie not to make a mess like breath and bones were clutter. And when Vanessa saw me later, she tried to make it small. "She's stubborn, she needs discipline, don't misunderstand." And her cousin Gavin drifted in smelling like expensive paper, with that line I've heard 1,000 times. Children need boundaries. "Ethan, don't embarrass yourself." None of it mattered when Maddie folded forward, coughing breath thin and wet. I put her on her side in the back seat like that paramedic once taught me, and drove to Riverside Children's on autopilot, jaw locked and at triage. Dr. Rowan Carter spoke in that calm way that keeps the floor under you, checked oxygen, lifted a sleeve, paused and said quietly to her nurse, "Note bruising on right arm, older yellowing at the edges, newer marks along the left ribs," then looked me in the eyes, steady as a metronome. These didn't happen all at once. Vanessa arrived to the hallway with makeup perfect and a story polished enough to cut glass. She's fragile, she bumps things, she slips. And Dr. Carter just shook her head slightly. Repeated falls in the same places. Our priority is Maddie's safety. Gavin called with the reputation talk, scandal headlines, investors. And I stared at the vending machine and saw a man who didn't look like a father yet and said, "I don't care about my reputation, I care about my kid." That was the line in the sand. I called Detective Alana Ruiz at Harbor County, told her what I saw, what the doctor saw, what my daughter said, and she listened without filling the silence, then said the sentence that lodged in my chest. "Keep the paperwork, take photos when permitted. Do not confront anyone alone. And if you truly want the truth, be ready to find more than you like." Maddie stabilized, thank God. And we took her home with oxygen logs and follow-ups, and I carried her into the reading room with the soft lamp and that old leather chair that still smells like rain, and she held my finger even in sleep like an anchor. Ruiz walked the house with me, heels quiet on the wood. You can place cameras in common spaces, do it today, and I felt ridiculous because I run a logistics company and track containers across oceans, but hadn't been tracking my own hallway. Near dusk, the bell rang, and a woman with a canvas tote and the face of someone carrying a secret too long said she was Olivia Park, former staff, and she held out her phone with a hand that trembled. I can't pretend I didn't hear it. It was Vanessa's voice, sharp enough to leave marks. "Useless, stop crying. Get up, then." The scrape of wheels and a hard thunk, and people will tell you audio can lie, but contempt has a sound, and I heard it. Ruiz duplicated the file, gave me a number to text. If I got more, told me it was just the beginning, and beginnings are enough if you don't blink. Around midnight, the new backyard camera pinged, and on my screen, the porch light made a halo around Vanessa and Beatrice, with the empty wheelchair in front of them, and Vanessa ran her hand along the rim like she was measuring balance then. In one smooth, practiced motion, tipped the chair down so it thudded. The step righted it, glanced around, and Beatrice covered her mouth like she'd swallowed a smirk. The hallway camera showed Vanessa set the empty chair 10 paces from the reading room door, angle it and shove, wheels slamming, wall bouncing back. And it's a sick thing to recognize choreography, but I did. I stepped into the hall and caught the handles before the second push voice, low so Maddie wouldn't wake. "What are you doing at midnight?" And Vanessa blinked like a lab specimen and said, shinning. Morning, I put the footage on the living room TV. No soundtrack, just plastic and wood and air. And Vanessa watched herself like it was a stranger she could outstare. Then she blinked fast and said, edited, and Gavin arrived with an accordion folder and that PR tone. "We can manage this stress grief, a statement, a redemption arc," and I slipped the memory card into my pocket and texted Ruiz. "I have video," then made coffee so strong it needed a seatbelt, and told Gavin to leave. The headlines came anyway, as they do exclamation points, used like accelerant, and neighbors gathered at our gate with handwritten signs, a woman with a toddler on her hip calling steady. Children aren't curses. Shame is, and for the first time in a long time I felt like I wasn't holding the fear alone. Beatrice folded fast when Ruiz set the recorder down and played Olivia's clip. I only followed the schedule I didn't know. And we all know, even when we say we don't, you know what I mean. Then came the twist I wasn't ready for and should have been. Money in the dark, the part of the story that explains the mask. Ruiz traced transfers through shell companies with vitamin names and a signature from Dean Foster, our estate manager. And motive isn't poetic, it's arithmetic. And those lines on a spreadsheet were trying to move my daughter like furniture to get to a trust. "This is their Achilles heel," Ruiz said, and the room got quiet in that honest way rooms get when a lie is pulled by the tail and looks small for the first time. Harbor County Court felt like a different climate. Colder air, brighter lights. Judge Irene Wallace with a pencil and a glance that could sort truth from theater. Vanessa in black with a tissue she never used, her lawyer pronouncing my last name like he owned it, saying I was overworked and paranoid, and weaponizing grief, and Judge Wallace said, noted, which is courtroom 4, don't insult the furniture. Dr. Carter testified like a map. Different stages of healing patterns that don't match a single fall, grip-shaped bruises. And when the defense tried to make her say maybe, she kept saying exactly, "This is not consistent with repeated accidental bumps." We played the video, no music, no commentary, just what was there. And it's extraordinary how quiet a room can be when a simple thing becomes undeniable. Olivia told the court what she heard, not what she imagined. Beatrice admitted what she saw, not what she wanted. Dean paled the way numbers men do when spreadsheets start talking back, and the defense called our footage spliced, and our grief a public relations stunt. And Judge Wallace lifted a hand, not loud, just final enough. The ruling rose like a slow sunrise. Child abuse conspiracy to defraud protective order asset recovery, referral to the bar for the attorney who treated obstruction like networking. And when the gavel sounded, Vanessa turned like she might lunge for a performance hug, and I said quiet and absolute, "Do not come near my child again," and you could see the air go out of her like a tire. Outside the stone steps, cameras flashed. But in the middle of the swarm, a stranger pressed a small daisy into Maddie's palm, And my daughter looked up at me and asked, "Not dramatic, just brave, Dad. Can I smile again?" And you'd think yes is simple, but it's not a word, it's a vow. After court life didn't turn into a montage. It turned into mornings at rehab with parallel bars and Dr. Carter saying one step, then another, my hands hovering a half-inch from my girl, counting together like a band. Only we could hear afternoons in the kitchen, where I put too much salt in everything, and got fired by the head chef in a purple wheelchair. Evenings with the same dog-eared book her mom loved, laughing in the places I used to skip, and at 2 a.m., I was on the floor, assembling a ridiculous glitter lamp, cursing at page 4. And when it finally clicked on, Maddie clapped like I'd landed a plane. I told the board I was stepping back, handed operations to my COO. Got asked if it was a midlife crisis, said I hoped so, because I'd hate to waste a crisis on the wrong life. And the neighborhood learned to wave without staring, which is a miracle we don't talk about enough. A few weeks later, I got a letter from Vanessa's sister, asking if someday when Maddie is older, we would consider a supervised conversation. Not forgiveness, not closure, just a chance to look a choice in the face and name it. And I folded the letter and put it in a drawer, because maybe the right to decide belongs to Maddie and not me, and certainly not the internet. Here's what I know now. The night I said stop, I thought I was saving my daughter, and maybe I did. But she saved me too, pulled me out of the version of myself that confused appearances with peace and reminded me a house isn't safe if the smallest person inside it has to hold her breath so the adults can feel comfortable. If a kid tells you they can't breathe, you stop the world, even if you look ridiculous, even if people say you're overreacting, even if headlines make you a punchline for a week. You stop. Now I want to hear from you. Where do you draw the line between discipline and abuse, and who gets to decide? Would you have installed cameras in your own home or kept it private and hoped for the best? Do people who hurt children get second chances, or is the door closed forever? And be honest, what bias about disability have you seen in your neighborhood, your church, your family, yourself? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. And if this meant something to you, share it with the person who needs courage today. Justice isn't a solo sport, and neither is love.